Hey everybody, Travis Bowman here. I'm a fingerstyle guitar player and retro video game nerd. Let's talk about NYXI controllers and whether or not they are worth it. By the end of this video, you should be able to determine whether or not you are the right person for these types of controllers here. So let's talk NYXI in general. Their overall vibe seems to be a very future-forward design with their controllers, meaning that this is not your run-of-the-mill, third-party controller. They have a lot of extra features, and that's exactly what you're paying for when you get a NYXI controller. So just to be clear, all four of these controllers were sent to me for the purposes of review, but every single opinion that you're going to hear about this is going to be directly my own opinion. Would you stop, please? Please don't lick me right now, baby. I'm trying to do a video. Thank you. So let's do a brief overview of the four controllers that we have on the table in front of us today, and then we're going to go through and talk about each one of those individually. So we have quite a variety of systems that these controllers are made for. And that's another thing that I really enjoy about NYXI is that they're not just a Nintendo Switch controller manufacturer or a PC controller manufacturer. They've done a couple of different things for different systems, and I would love to see them move forward to go even further back and do some nice retro controllers. The Dreamcast desperately needs a controller that has 6 face buttons and an analog stick, and for some reason we still don't have a good alternative Dreamcast controller with those features. NYXI, if you're watching this video, please help us out, help the Dreamcast fan base out. There's a lot of people that really want this, so please consider that for your next controller release. So let's talk about what these have in common really quickly. NYXI really likes to move forward with some RGB lighting. So all of these controllers that you're going to see today, except for this one right here, feature some really cool lighting effects in the controllers. They all seem to have the Hall effect joysticks, so that way you don't have to worry about stick driftage. I don't know why we still have to worry about that in this day and age, but with a NYXI controller, odds are you're never going to have to worry about that with that stick drift. Every controller here is wireless, and it's got a battery inside each one of these controllers, and they are charged with a USB-C port, which is actually very nice. We need to move on from the micro USB stuff and move on with USB-C, and they are definitely doing that with their controllers. So over here, we'll start on the left. This is the controller that I got most recently. Currently, it's their newest controller. This is called the NYXI Flexi, and it is a controller that's designed to be used with your PC. And we've got a lot of extra features there. This is a very robust controller. If I threw it at somebody, it would hurt very bad. It's not a cheap piece of plastic. They really went all out on the robustness of this controller here. It's really sturdy, really heavy duty, and I do like that. Right next to that is sort of the same situation. This is also a PC controller called the NYXI Master P1. P1, I'm guessing, meaning player one. It's sort of the same situation. And it's more of like a simpler design. It's not as robust, but it's still pretty darn sturdy. You know, when you press into this plastic, it's not moving very much at all. It's very sturdy, very well built. Same sort of situation with this guy here. Now we're moving on to this one. This is the NYXI Hyperion Pro. This is strictly a Nintendo Switch controller, and I've done a dedicated video on this if you want to check that out, as well as pretty much every controller on this table too. And I'll put links to that in the description below. This is a really nice Switch controller, and as a matter of fact, I cannot stand the original Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. I don't know if you're like me, my hands are too big or what, but they just have never been comfortable at all. I can't stand them. This is a much better controller in my opinion. It's also very sturdy, but it's light. It's incredibly light actually, which is good if you want to do handheld mode on the Switch, which you totally can with this controller. It's not just a standalone controller like this. You can physically pull this off and connect that to your Nintendo Switch. So we'll look at this a little bit more in depth here in just a second. Finally, we have my favorite controller probably on the table today. This is definitely the one that I've used the most. This is the NYXI Warrior, which looks very similar to a Nintendo GameCube controller, and rightly so. This is used on the Nintendo GameCube, and I believe you can also use this on the Switch as well. That's the brief overview of the four controllers we're going to take a look at today. Let's take the camera, zoom it in, and we'll start talking about these controllers individually. First on the list, we have the NYXI Flexi controller. So right off the bat, you can tell that this is a little bit different than your standard controller here, and I'll show you exactly why that is. But let's talk about the grips. First of all, you have some of these little holes right there, and I suppose that that's going to help with your sweating of your hands and all that good stuff, but it also has a really nice lighting effect that you have right there. And you can change the colors of this, with this little button back here. There's a tiny button on the back, and you can press that, and you've got all sorts of different colors that you can cycle through, and you can pick your favorite one. I think I like the green one the best, if I can make it back to it. It's going to take a second. It's trying to pair to something right now, and I don't have it hooked up to do that. But there you go right there. You see it's trying to find that USB dongle that we have there. And right now I don't have that dongle plugged in, so it's not going to be able to pair to anything. But I've had no issues with pairing any one of these controllers to their respective dongles, and that's a theme with NYXI as well. I've never had an issue like that. And some of these third-party controllers, unfortunately, they're just not good at pairing with their respective dongles. But this one, definitely not a big deal at all. So what makes this one special? Well, it's clearly an Xbox-styled controller here, right? You've got your A, B, and X, Y, and you've got your triggers. You know, nothing special there. And the triggers feel fine. There's nothing too crazy about that. You've got these programmable back buttons back here. A lot of controllers are doing that these days, and that's fine. And you got a reset button just in case you need it. This is a great controller. But the really cool thing that makes this stand out is this right here. This little plate comes off, and it's held by magnets. You can see the magnets right there, and that's where the magnets are attaching on these little places right there. So the interesting thing about this particular controller is the fact that you can take this piece out right here, just like so, and you can flip it around, stick it right back in there, and voila. Now you've got a PlayStation-style controller, if you want it. And that's great, man. I really, really do like that. It's super easy to change whenever you want to, and I think that's a brilliant idea because I play a lot of 2D-based games on my PC when I do play PC games. And, you know, I love the PlayStation controller, but I think we can all agree that the D-pad sucks for 2D games. I don't know what it is about that D-pad, but it's just not great. It isn't great for 2D games, but I really do enjoy what NYXI does with their D-pads. It's very nice and clicky. The sticks are really nice too. My one complaint about this controller is that the sticks, I know it's hard to tell in this video, but they tend to come out a little further than I would like personally, but don't make judgments based on what I said there, because I've got big giant monkey hands and it's just not as comfortable as some of the other controllers. But using this to play some Streets of Rage 4 is a really great experience. I've had no issues with this controller whatsoever. And being a PC controller, you have your X input as well as your D input. So that's pretty easy to change between on this controller as well with a very simple button combination. Highly recommend this one from NYXI, the NYXI Flexi. Please stop licking me. Now we got the Master P1, another PC controller from NYXI. This one is an Xbox design as well, and you can see that we don't have any of the fancy stuff where we can change out anything, but that's fine. Not everybody needs that sort of situation. When you turn it on, you've got these lights right here, which is really nice to look at. I really like the grips. They're kind of rubberized over here with this little texture. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's a really nice controller if you just want something to play your PC games with. And yes, it's trying to pair. I don't have it hooked up right now. Interestingly, this particular controller has this little attachment right here if you wanted to connect your phone to it as well. It's compatible with the Nintendo Switch, with Android phones as well as iPhones if you're into that sort of thing. I'm not particularly interested in that sort of thing, but the option is there if you want it. They've got a mute button right here on the controller as well, and it's not pairing to anything, so it's not going to work right now. But you've got your standard triggers, your bumpers, and your triggers back here. An interesting thing that NYXI tends to do with these types of controllers, you've got these little switches back here with these programmable buttons. Right now they're locked, so when I press down, nothing happens. But if I flip that switch, it becomes a button that can be used just like any other programmable button. So I like to keep those locked because I just don't have any interest in using those for any particular game. The same thing can be done with these triggers. Now this is something that I would use. You can flip that switch up right there, and these become clicky buttons instead of analog triggers, and I think that's a really cool addition, and I really do enjoy this controller. This is my primary PC controller just because it is very comfortable, very simple. I like the sticks. They're a little bit more recessed than the NYXI Flexi, which is not necessarily a terrible thing or a good thing. It just depends on your preference. Now, I really do use this controller quite a bit, and the battery life is great, and I love the fact that you can turn those triggers into clickable buttons if you so desire. And right here on the bottom, you've got this little switch that will go between 3 different modes. You can switch to your dongle, you can switch to the Nintendo Switch mode, or just regular old Bluetooth if you want to connect it to your cellular phone. I've done a dedicated video about this. If you want to learn more, check the link in the description. Let's move on to the next controller. Okay, so now we have the Hyperion Pro controller. This is a dedicated Nintendo Switch controller, and this is the purple one. As you can see, they've got a couple of different colors on their website, you know, as far as this is concerned, the plastic, but everything seems to be pretty much the same sort of situation as far as the sticks and stuff are concerned. I'm not the biggest fan of the Nintendo Switch. I've played my fair share of Switch games on that system, and this is my favorite controller to do so if I do play the Switch. You can see that we've got a little bit of some anglage there, right there, so that's kind of really nice and comfortable when you're in that Switch mode, when you're connected to the Nintendo Switch. And in handheld mode like this, or controller mode, I guess you could call it, it is actually very, very comfortable as well. And there's a little button on the back, just like your Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons do, and you can hold these and play your game just like this if you so desire, or you can shove it back in there, and there's your actual controller right there, which is really cool too. I've done a dedicated video on this as well, where I go a hell of a lot more in depth than I am right now, but I will say one of the greatest things about this controller that I would love to see implemented in the future, particularly for Switch, is this little ring right here. I'll see if I can get this camera to focus on it. Please do what I want you to do. Thank you. There's a little ring on the actual shaft on that stick right there, and it's metal. So when you rub this against the plastic, like so, it doesn't grind away at the plastic. And there's also kind of like a little protective ring around this circle up in there. But it's a really nice sensation to have that metal ring do all the touching right there instead of plastic on plastic. That's a super smart design, and I think it's very future-proofed. These sticks are not going to be wearing out anytime soon, and they're Hall effect. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff with this controller as far as the different colors and stuff right there. And it's a great controller for your Switch. And in fact, if you are going to play the Nintendo Switch, I highly recommend a controller like this that can so very easily go between a controller mode like this and, of course, actually plugged into your Switch in handheld mode. My only gripe about this guy right here is the fact that each part of the controller has its own dedicated USB-C charging thing. Now, I would really have loved to have seen just one in the centerpiece right here, so that way you can charge both at the same time without the need for 2 cables. But you know what? If you're going to be using this on your Switch, you can just use it in docked mode and it will charge both of them that way. So it's a minor gripe, but still, it would have been so much better if you had one USB-C port there instead of 2 per controller. But I'd love to know what you guys think about a Switch controller like this. Honestly, I've tried a bunch of Switch controllers over the years, despite the fact that it's not my favorite system, and this is still my go-to controller. I can't imagine playing the Switch with any other controller than this one. Okay, and now we've got the NYXI Warrior controller here. This is a multi-use controller. It's mainly designed to be used with the Nintendo GameCube, but you can also use this on your Wii. It's pretty much the same thing, as well as the Nintendo Switch, and you can use it as a PC controller as well. So lots of bang for your buck with this guy, man. I've used the crap out of this controller, to be honest with you, and the reason might actually be strange to you. I still play the GameCube, and yeah, this is great for GameCube games, but the main thing that I use this for is the Game Boy player. Check out that D-pad right there. It's so much more usable than the original Nintendo GameCube D-pad on that controller. I love this D-pad. It's really micro-switchy, feely, clicky, and I really, really do love that. And the buttons are the same thing. And I'm not sure if you're picking this up on my microphone or not, but if you want to learn more about this controller, I also have a dedicated video on it, and I highly recommend that you check it out. So on the back here, this is where things get really interesting. The same situation as the controller that we saw before, where you can turn this into an analog trigger, where it goes all the way down, or flip that up, and it's just right there. It's more of a button. You can do that with either one. This little thing right here is actually a piece of plastic that comes right out, just like that. And you can see there's a little teeny tiny lever in there. In the box, this comes with a device that allows you to have these little programmable back buttons if you wanted to. This is a really interesting, innovative design on this controller because they didn't have to do this. They could have just left the buttons there, but they gave you the option of taking them out, which for somebody like me, I really appreciate that because I don't care about that kind of thing. I want this to be as GameCube-y as possible, and not having those buttons there is what I want. So that's a really nice thing that they did to give you the option. So if you wanted to use this as like some programmable back buttons, you would have to get the other piece that's in the box and replace it with that. But I just think that's so cool that they give you that option. You really start to see how these are pretty much very premium controllers, man. Like they're not just your cheap $15, $20 replacement controller. A lot of thought went into this. And you can tell that they actually care about people that are genuinely interested in video games and take their video games seriously. This is a controller that's meant to last. The battery life is great, USB-C charging, and a lot of extra features. And just this D-pad alone for Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance games, is a total game changer. I've also got a video detailing a lot more about this controller if you want to check that out, link in the description. And there you have a very brief overview of all four of these really cool NYXI controllers. Honestly, personally, I'm a big fan of what they do. And I would love to see them put the care and effort into some more retro controllers. They kind of dip their toe in with the GameCube, and I'm loving that. However, there's a lot of controllers that need an update, a more modern update, that can still be used on their respected retro systems. Dreamcast, 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 please. I want that so bad. I would love to see a NYXI Dreamcast controller, and who knows, with the rate that they're going, we might see that in the future. But let me know what you guys think about that in the comments section below. Now, if I was going to be realistic and say anything about cons as far as these controllers are concerned, it's the price. These are not $20 controllers. They're upwards closer to $50 or $60 per controller, which, you know, they are premium feeling controllers. You've got a lot of features packed into each one of these, and they're all so unique. That's the other crazy thing. None of these controllers are completely alike. They're all vastly different, and I'm sure you picked up on that when we were going over them just a moment ago. But you pretty much never have to pay full price for the NYXI controllers because they're constantly going on sale. You need to watch their website for that, or you can use a promo code like the one that you'll find in the comments section below. Just use the code TravisBowmanMusic for 10% off of any controller that you see here, any controller on their website. They're really good about working with YouTubers and influencers and stuff like that. They're in it for the gamers, and that much is very, very clear. I hope by watching this you were able to make a decision based on which controller you were interested in. Like I said, I have a link in the description for each one of these individually if you want to check those out. I really appreciate you guys checking out this video. Thanks for watching, and thank you for subscribing, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.